All right, Adam Trigger here. It is Monday. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend, and it is time to talk some Major League Baseball free picks and best bets right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Let's get right into it with Twins headed to the Bronx to take on the New York Yankees. And very interesting scenario with the Twins, and something we did kind of predict on our Total Bases show. The Minnesota Twins set a record for the number of people they traded on deadline day. Or at the trade deadline. I think it was 11 in total. And, which was shocking, I would say, to some, because the Twins weren't that far out of the race. And, it was surprising to see them go full fire sale because it still felt like they were sort of hanging around on the fringes of the American League wildcard picture. But that's the way the Twins went. And so the way the market went when that happened was to sort of price the Twins as this bottom option. And what we talked about on the Total Bases show was like, hey, like maybe pump the brakes on that. They have a lot of good young players in this organization. They got back some really good young talent as well. And as that starts to get into the Twins' everyday lineup, we might see them actually play pretty good baseball. And that is exactly what's happened. And if you watch our Total Bases show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, you would know that because we started talking about it the day that the Twins made all those trades. The guy was waiting to get called up, and this is, again, something we've been ahead of the curve on. We've pointed this out, was Luke Keschel. He was up earlier this year. I truly believe he would be having a monster season right now had he not got hurt. I think he broke his arm. I think he fractured a bone in his arm that kept him out for a couple months. He came back, had some reps at AAA. Ever since they called him back up, he's been their best player. And, some of the other additions like Alan Roden comes over from the Jays organization. He's getting a chance to play. And then just getting some of their own guys back, like an Austin Martin, who's found his way up into the lineup every once in a while. Just getting some of their own guys the chance to play every day has benefited this team tremendously. And if you look at the makeup of this team, yeah, they traded away some guys that are solid MLB players, but most of those guys are in the bullpen. Guys like Brock Stewart, Johan Duran, Griffin Jacks, and there's been some other Minnesota relievers that have stepped up and filled the void in that regard. And suddenly, this Twins team is priced like a bottom option. Yet they're, in my opinion, they're not as much different than they were prior to all the trades. It's just some different faces. And so it's really made the Twins big time value on a day-to-day basis at this point. And, that's what we saw all of last week. The Twins were big underdogs in Detroit. They ended up taking 2 of 3. And then over the weekend, a more competitively priced series, but take 2 of 3 at home against the Royals. So it's a team that's playing good ball right now. And I still think you're going to be able to find great spots to back them. I actually think you have one here, especially with the Yankees money starting to creep into the market. So I would have put this, like we do a Total Bases parlay where we pick our best bet for the show and then sort of parlay them together. I would have used this if the price was what it was now. Earlier this morning when I was doing the show, it was like Twins plus 1.5 was something like minus 150. Now I'm seeing it in the minus 130 to minus 135 range. And if the Yankees keep taking money, this might actually end up on my client card. So Twins plus 1.5 is the play here. And the reason I like the Twins in this matchup is I'm just much higher on Zebby Matthews, Twins starting pitcher, than the market. I don't think the market, I don't even think some of the people that are betting baseball on a daily basis even really like that don't really watch the games really like understand what they're getting with Matthews. And so especially if you don't watch minor league baseball, you don't understand what you're getting with this guy and where the upside is. So Zebby Matthews last year flew through the Twins organization. He's an older guy because he went to a 4-year college. And so he pitched, all the way through college. So he went to Western Carolina. By the time he graduated, he was already older. And so last year, he was still an A-ball as like a 24-year-old. And, just throwing strikes and having a 97 mile an hour. Listen, if you have a 97 mile an hour fastball and you're throwing multiple pitches for strikes, you're going to fly up the ranks in the minors. And that's exactly what he did. And then what happened to Matthews last year was he got to the big league level, and he is so accurate. He just lives around the plate. And unfortunately, if all you're doing is throwing strikes, that'll work at AA. That'll even work at AAA in a lot of cases. But when you get to the big leagues, if all you're doing is putting the ball right over the plate, even if you have decent command in the zone, guys are going to figure that out. And that's what happened to him a little bit last year. Now, this year, again, the numbers are deceiving because if you pull up very quickly your score app, and you'll see Zebby Matthews 5.17 ERA, but like that's just at the big league level. If you look at AAA this year, Matthews is a 1.72 ERA, a 225 batting average against, and a 109 whip. And the reason he's even been at AAA so much is he's battled injury. He had to work around an injury that caused him to shut it down and then get it going this year. So he did need to spend some time down there just from a rehab standpoint. And then it just hasn't always gone his way when he's got to the big league level. But that's also very difficult. It's tough having to sort of work around injury mid-season. And I think he's been able to do that. And now the last couple starts, he's looked like the guy that I think we expect him to look like. Big fastball, 6 shutout innings against the Nationals. He pitched really good in his most recent outing. I think that might have been the Royals. But anyway, he has been very, very solid. And it might have been the Tigers, which is even better. He's been very, very solid in terms of the way he's thrown the ball. It just hasn't shown up in his numbers yet. So in my opinion, you get a very underrated starting pitcher and a very underrated team that's just playing with a lot of energy right now at +1.5. Where on the other side, you have a Yankees team that's really starting to feel the pressure. They still make a lot of mistakes, and they're going to go with a guy in Will Warren who is I would argue is a worse sort of prospect right in that same sort of age range, 26 years old. It's his first full season at the big league level. So you're getting a worse pitcher and a team that's just really finding ways to beat themselves at this point in the Yankees. And yet you still have to lay a 1.5. I'll fade that all day. So the Minnesota Twins +1.5 at -130, we'll call it -135. That's a great bet. And if this thing comes down any farther, I may have to add that to my client card because I just love the way this team is playing right now. And I still think they're big time value. Another thing I love, I got a 5%er tonight. Listen, 12-3 to close out last week. We're really starting to move in the right direction. Back-to-back winning months in June and July, and we're already off to a great start in August. Last 60 days, I'm the #1 handicapper in terms of units gained on the WagerTalk website. So it's been a really good 2-month run, well, 2.5-month run, really. And we've got a 5% max bet going tonight. I hate like that. I'll be honest. It's one of my favorite spots of the year. One of my favorite bets of the year. 5% is our max. But this is, if I were to rate out the max bets I've made this year, would be very, very near the top of the list in terms of like, if I could go 6, I probably would in this scenario. And when I put the full analysis in, I think you'll see why. That goes tonight. It's up now, and you can get it at the link at the bottom of your page. All right, I'll go a little quicker on this one. Listen, I'm going to try to give you the picks quick. I know there's people that watch the Total Bases show that want to learn a little bit. That's why I go a little bit longer on these videos, but I have far less to say about this one. So I used most of the time on Twins Yankees because I actually might turn around and play Twins +1.5. I don't think I'll have a best bet in this game, but I'll give you a free pick, and the free pick would be the Rangers, -155. They're at home against the Diamondbacks. So we're going to talk Rangers D-backs, and I really think this one is this simple. You have Nathan Eovaldi on the mound. He has been as good as any pitcher in the majors this year. He has a 0.84 whip for a starting pitcher with 111 innings so far in 2025. It doesn't get much better. That is an insane mark. To see a starting pitcher with a sub-1 whip that's got over 100 innings pitched on the year, you just don't see that very often. He's having a tremendous season. If you look at his StatCast page, it is all red. Pitching run value, he's in the top 1% in the league. And he's pretty much in the top 1% in almost every category. Expected ERA is like 3. That's unheard of, which means he's just the numbers he's putting up, this 1.38 ERA, 0.84 whip, it's not like he's getting lucky. Like that's roughly, he's pitching good enough to theoretically maintain that, it just speaks to what a season he's having. And, from a spot standpoint, I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than this for the Rangers. They get swept by a good Phillies team over the weekend, whereas the Diamondbacks have just been, they've been at home against the Rockies. I mean, you want to talk about a contrast. You have the Rangers playing one of the best teams in the league in very big games, over the weekend. And it's the Diamondbacks have been playing beer league softball against the Rockies pitching staff. Arizona in that series, I mean, yesterday was ridiculous. 13 runs on 17 hits. The night before, they actually needed to kind of come from behind in that game. Still ended up racking up 11 hits. Like the Rockies pitching staff is just atrocious right now. So now they turn around from at home, getting to see that type of pitching. And what do they get a day later? They get Nate Eovaldi. That's going to be an issue. I think the Diamondbacks bats probably go quiet here. And as much as I've talked about Ryan Nelson being like a plus arm, I do like him. Like he's a guy that I'm probably higher on, or I've been higher on than the market, I would say, since last year. The one thing I've noticed with him this year, now that he's really been more of a regular starter at the big league level, he really is like, he has a big fastball, and that's kind of it at this point. I mean, he's going to come out, he's going to throw 96, and he's really going to just sort of run it in there with a little bit of movement, see it, hit it, and he's been able to beat, guys in AAA and then, early on in his big league career by doing that. The problem with Nelson is he doesn't really have a second pitch that's great. And so, you could throw the fastball all day and you could get by spotting the fastball, but at some point, if you don't have a secondary pitch as a starter, you're going to start to get exposed. And that's why some of his expected sort of numbers suggest that we might see some regression off of what's been a tremendous season to this point. 3.2 ERA, 1.05 whip. Whereas he's got an expected ERA in the fours, and it makes sense because at some point the league is going to start to get a beat. And if they're not hitting the four-seamer, if they're not hitting the fastball he's throwing the majority of the time, they're going to wait for a flat slider or a curveball that hangs up in the zone. His changeup, he leaves it up once in a while. He doesn't throw it very often, but when he does, it's more of just like a change of pace pitch, and you're going to see big league hitters figure it out, wait for that pitch, and probably hit it out of the ballpark. So Nelson, I'm less optimistic on the rest of this year. I think he needs an off season where he goes and really develops a good second pitch. And so to me, he's almost become a little bit of a fade the rest of the way because of that. And I'd certainly be willing to play against him on the road, and then knowing I'm going to have Eovaldi on the other side. You're not getting any value. You're still going to have to lay $1.55 with the Rangers, but it's the best way to go in this one. I wouldn't bet the Diamondbacks here. This just doesn't set up well for Arizona, and I think the Rangers get a win that they absolutely need. So 2 free picks for you right there. That's Twins plus 1.5, one that I'm going to keep my eye on and maybe add to my client card. And then you've got Rangers on the money line. Not going to make a client play at that price, but I do think I very much think they win the game, and maybe you can parlay it or find something to do with that. If you want my favorite play of the day, and honestly, it's one of my favorite sort of plays of the season at this point, head on over to WagerTalk.com. It's my 5%er. It's going tonight, and I hope to have you join me on that one because I really, really like this spot. WT.buzz/AT. You can see it scrolling on the bottom of your page. And don't forget, Monday through Friday, total basis, 9 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. I'll see you guys in the morning. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating a nice win. Have a great day, everyone. Cash all your tickets, and we'll see you next time.